Hello and welcome to the Hutchinson Natatorium for yet another SCSU Owls swimming meet for all of you watching on the SCSU Owls YouTube channel. My name is Ben Martin, and we've got a Connecticut battle here, folks. Yale and UConn, Division I rivals, coming in from New Haven and Storrs to match up against Southern Connecticut down here in New Haven, Connecticut. The Southern Connecticut men come into today 1-2, coming off their first win of the season, 120-101 against the College of Staten Island. Swimmers on the watch list for them, definitely Jack Fry and Dylan Pressure are two big names to talk about for Southern, but in their last meet they won 6 individual events. Fry and Pressure each taking home 2 apiece, and it was a freshman takeover. Sam Whitaker, Mason Durant, both had individual wins, but we're going to start today with the women's 200-yard medley relay, and all 3 schools present in this event, Yale, UConn, and Southern. UConn only sporting a women's team. So on the men's side, you're going to see a lot of one-heat events. But on the women's side, we might have to dip into a second heat today, as we're going to get ready for the 200-yard medley relay. First event on your heat sheet for all of you down here at the Hutch. You've got UConn in lane 1, Southern Connecticut, UConn in lanes 1, 4, and 7. Southern Connecticut in lane 3 and 6. Yale in 2, 5, and 8. We've got a full pool today at the Hutch, as the referee is going to look to blow this one in. And starting off for Southern Connecticut, it's going to be Abby Lyons, Lexi Dominguez. We're going to get into a little bit more information there. I spoke with Callie Dominguez, her sister, this week. And I want to say something at the beginning of this broadcast before we get started here. Huge shout out to everyone who I spoke to this week. A lot of text interviews were done on my side, and a huge shout out to all of the people that responded to me. Allison Kidos, Callie Dominguez, Nick Zerva, Molly Kennedy, all this week. Last week's comments from Nick Fournier and Dylan Pressure will also be worked into this broadcast as well, as there's a lot for me to go through today. But speaking of going through, it's lanes 4 and 5 on the backstroke that take the lead here in the 200-yard medley relays. They're going to pass it off to that next swimmer in the not the freestyle length. It looks like I got to learn a little bit more about how this is the breaststroke. In lanes 4 and 5, that is UConn and Yale. Sydney Perkins of UConn swimming lane 2 with Jessie Lee of Yale. Jessie Lee, a very decorated swimmer so far this season, out there in lane 5, as they're going to pass it off yet again. Yale and UConn, those Division I programs, really in the lead. And Yale, one of those top Division I programs. They've got a lot of swimmers who rank in the upper echelon of D1, especially on the men's side. As they're going to kick it to the fly. Speaking of fly, when we get into that on the men's side, Yale has one of the best fly swimmers in the entire nation on the men's side. As they're going to continue it along, though, with the women's fly length here, getting toward the freestyle length, are Yale and UConn in lanes 4 and 5. You see the Bulldogs jumping out to a bit of a lead here. Probably about a full body length here that separates lane 5 from 4. In lane 5, that is Mia Hastis of UConn in lane 4, and Sarah Plunkett in lane 5 for Yale, as Plunkett looks like she's going to run away with this one as she gets ready to touch the line. And she'll finish there in second, will UConn in lane 4. It's lane 5 of Yale in first, and UConn B rounding out the top 4. So Yale and UConn cleaning up against the Division II Southern Connecticut, who round out the last 2 spots in 7 and 8. As we're going to get set for the men's 200-yard medley relay. Your Owls teams in lanes, just lane 4 it looks like. Chris Janney, Nick Fournier, Jacob Tanner, and Jack Simmons are your Owls team there in lane 4. Swimming that first length, it'll be Elliot Lee, Peter Mikulczyk, Aiden Connors, and Lucius Brown for Yale. As we get set for the men's version of this relay, let's read off a little bit about those swimmers on the watch list, although they're not going to be performing in this race. But Jack Fry has had quite the start to the season. Fry has won 4 individual events in the last 2 meets. I believe that is all of the meets that he has participated in, all the individual events in these last 2 meets, as we'll see how he's going to fare against this Division I competition. As kicking us off here, I mentioned Chris Janney for the Owls. He'll kick it to Nicholas Fournier. Then Fournier will satch it over to Jacob Tanner, and Tanner will pass it to the end length, the anchor in Jack Simmons. It looks like there's a little bit of reordering here. Looks like that Owls team didn't really know who was leading off, which when you're in an individual medley, you kind of know because each of you specialize in a different stroke. But we are underway here. It's Janney against the 4 Bulldogs. So we'll see what kind of time he can put up here against these fast swimmers. And sometimes you think to yourself, Southern Connecticut is a Division II school. Granted, they are a Division II powerhouse, but why do they compete against these Division I top programs? It's all about racing the best swimmers possible. When you swim against those guys, you learn a little bit about how to become them. And that's exactly what Southern Connecticut is looking to do here. Your top split, 25-11 from Yale A in lane 5. As it's starting to look like a Yale practice as Nick Fournier a little bit behind them, but you can tell he's putting in as much effort as he possibly can, as he has some goals this season to break some individual PRs, as we're going to see if Fournier can do it here today at the Hutch. They'll pass it off here, all the Yale lengths now in that butterfly stroke. It looks like lane 5 still got the lead, but just by a little bit. All these Yale guys competing against each other. Out there in lane 5 there for Yale, that is Daniel Nenkoff. Nenkoff looks to pass it off. That is Ethan Guo. Back there on the last length for the Bulldogs in lane 5. As lanes 5 and 7 look like they're going to get a little tight here, as they'll hit the flip turn. Flipping off the wall there in lane 7, that is Yale C that looks like it's jumping out to a bit of a lead. But this is really neck, and neck between those 3 Yale lengths. They'll touch the line first. It's Yale C that gets the W over A and B. Yale C team there. That is out there in lane 7th, Manoli Mountanakis. Sorry if I'm butchering any of these Yale names, folks. I do not have a pronunciation guide in front of me for the swimmers, and that may contribute to a couple of pronunciation problems for the Yale guys. I'm sorry in advance, but we're going to get set for the women's 1,000-yard freestyle, and something to note about Southern is a lot of these swimmers, they double dip, especially on the women's side. Lakshmi Garofalo, just to name one who's a diver and a swimmer. They have her at the Hutch swimming today out there in lane 3. I was interested to see what head coach Tim Quill and assistant coach CJ Moran, along with head diving coach Michelle Griffith, agreed on to do there. But they're going to keep Lakshmi at the Hutch here to swim against these Yale swimmers. Your Southern swimmers, Lakshmi Garofalo, Jasmine Uricchio, and Rachel Bing. That is lanes 3, 6, and 8. As we get into the 1,000 here, we're going to let the referee kick this one off, but I think this is a great time to talk a little bit about some of these interviews that I went and sought out this week. But before I want to do that, I want to talk a little bit about the Southern Connecticut women's team and the bit of a run that they've been on over the last few meets. Southern Connecticut has been on a bit of a run. We're going to look to their scores here. They're 2-1, coming off of back-to-back wins against WPI and CSI. Southern Connecticut 142-128 against WPI, 142-82 right here at home against CSI. The Owls won 7 individual events at CSI, against CSI, including the 200-yard medley relay. In the relay, it was a team of Abby Lyons, Allison Kitos, Jillian Pitchell, and Molly Kennedy, probably a similar team to what you saw out there today, that crossed the line in 153.29. Other individual event wins were from Callie Dominguez, Jillian Pitchell, Erilyn Vogel, and Jasmine Uricchio, who's out there swimming right now. Dominguez won the 1650 with a time of 18:28.68, which is a new top mark in the Northeast 10 Conference. Jillian Pitchell won the 50-yard freestyle with a time of 25:37. Vogel won the 200 IM with a time of 2:17.06. Uricchio won the 100-yard butterfly in 1 minute 67, good for 5th in the NE10. It's interesting to see Uricchio, that sprint butterfly, but also swimming the 1,000 out here. And the girl who won the 1650 against CSI, that was Callie Dominguez. She's not swimming out here in the 1,000, as that event should be more in her wheelhouse. But Jazz Uricchio has been one of those players on the watch list for sure for Southern Connecticut, along with Molly Kennedy, who we'll speak about later. Uricchio is another top performer against WPI and Westchester. She won the 200-yard butterfly win with a time of 2:11.77. And she's 79th in Division II in that stroke. 500-yard freestyle win of 5:17.46 was top time in the NE10 so far this season, 126th in Division II. Those are all from her Westchester meet. As let's get into some live action here. As leading, I believe that is lane 5 out there. That is in lane 5. That is Morgan Cady of Yale out there leading early on. But this is the 1,000, folks. This will be one of your longer races today. As, like I said, mentioned earlier on, I spent some time talking to some of the women's swimmers. As in this 1,000, we're going to take some time to recap a little bit of that. And I'm going to jump in particular to my interview with Callie Dominguez, because she's someone who you would see out here in the 1,000, one of the captains of this women's squad, along with Allison Kitos and Zoe McNeil. When asked about how the team is doing so far this year, Callie Dominguez says she thinks the team has been doing great. We've been up against some tough Division I teams like Yale and UConn that they're playing against right now. I think that's only makes us stronger as a team. We've been putting lots of hard work in and out of the pool, and she's very proud of everyone. And they're starting to gel a little bit. She said she thinks that since they're deep into the season, we're all used to practicing with each other, and we always are pushing each other to be the best in the pool. I think it's really just us being motivated and focused on posting a lot of top times that have helped. A lot of seniors graduated from the women's squad on the SCSU side last year, and that was definitely a big change for them. On our women's side, basically half our team is new. I feel really good about the start of our season. We've been doing great, and we continue to work hard every day. What is Callie most excited for? Like a lot of the members of this team are most excited for, it is Northeast 10 Conference Championships. Can't wait to see what this team can do. Like I said before, 11 freshmen, and they have all been doing a great job in the water and adjusting to the team. And she says, I know we will perform great and bring back another championship win. It's a little Joe Namath-esque for her to guarantee a conference championship win, but with how well the women have been performing in recent years, Callie can afford to guarantee that conference win. As far as personal goals for Callie Dominguez, goal is to continue to train hard and would love to post some top times this season in the NE10s. And she talked about this opportunity to compete against Yale and UConn. Said it's amazing to compete against Yale and UConn. We've competed against them every year I've been here, and it's been a great race with such amazing athletes. Callie Dominguez, one of the family duos on the squad, one of the sibling duos, her sister Lexi Dominguez also on this team. And she said she's had so much love for this team, and getting to be a captain this year has been amazing. She said her dad was a captain when he was on the team, when he was in college, and my brother was also a captain last year when he was on the team. So it's very cool that I get to follow in their footsteps. It's definitely a little different since half our team is freshmen. We are working with a whole new team of girls, but like I said before, the freshmen have done a great job adjusting and have been working so hard in the pool. And I'd asked her about that family connection that she mentioned while being a captain. She said, being able to swim with my brother these past few years has been great. I always had him here when I needed him. I think it also was great at NE10s. We got to cheer each other on, and I think that's something really special and something that really helped me out. Now I have my sister on the team, and I think that's something is really great for us. I get to be there to support her and help her with whatever she needs. I love having her here. Those sibling swimming duos are not uncommon. Aiden and Molly Kennedy, one of them, Julian and Julia Pitchell. That is a tongue twister for all of you folks back home. And Sarah and Vincent Roney. So 4 swimming sibling duos out here for the Owls in the ranks for Tim Quill's squad. Katie continuing to swim along, 31:40 her last split, 32:28 for Griffin in lane 7 of UConn. 32:33 for Phillips of UConn, 35:98 for Lakshmi Garofalo of Southern Connecticut, 37:58 for Rachel Bing. So see what happens here in the 1,000 as they continue along. The women have been doing a great job adjusting. They started off the season a little rough, but getting those back-to-back wins has been super key for Southern Connecticut on the women's side as they continue along here in the 1,000, as this is your longest event today, this 1,000-yard freestyle. And After the men's version, we switched to some more sprints, the 200-yard freestyle. As we have time, we'll talk a little bit about these other women's swim teams that come in here. Let's start with UConn. They're first on my sheet. No preference towards either one of them. If we can flip to it, folks. Sorry, folks. I got a big broadcast packet here, and it's hard to flip between all the pages. UConn women's team comes in with a record of 2-1. They've got back-to-back wins against URI, 188 to 112, and Northeastern 180 to 120. So not only back-to-back wins, but they're winning in very convincing fashion. They last competed at the Iowa Invitational, and they returned to competition after this with a meet on January 10th against UMass at home. Their star athletes, Jessica Shang, second time in the Big East in the 50 free with 22.56 at the Iowa Invitational. She's 100th in D1 in that stroke. In the 100 free, she's third in the Big East at 50.01, third in the Big East in the 100 back at 55.05. Nora Rome, another swimmer on the watch list. 500 free is really her specialty. She's third in the Big East in the 500 free at 4:51.96. Also, the 1,000 free, which we are swimming right now, is another specialty of Nora. She is first in the Big East at 10:06.14 in the 1,000 free, as you will not see her out there in this 1,000 free. Interesting decision by the UConn coaches to not have her compete. Ryan Russell, 50 back, first in the Big East at 25.83. 100 back, she's second in the Big East at 54.84. Molly Rogers, 100 back, she's first in the Big East at 54.61. Bella Hoffman, 200 back, first in the Big East at 157.82. Sydney Perkins, another decorated athlete for the Huskies. She's first in the Big East in the 50 breast at 28.55, 83rd in the entirety of Division I. In the 100 breast, she's first in the Big East at 101.23. 200 breast, first in the Big East at 212.60. That is 88th in D1. As we continue to swim along here in the 1,000, let's talk about Yale's women's team. They come in with a record of 1-1. Last meet was a 213-87 win over Columbia, and they just competed at the Ohio State Invitational. Players on the watch list, it starts with Devin Sargent, second in the Ivy League in the 200 back with a time of 156.87. 50 back, she's third in the Ivy with a time of 25.07. In the 100 back, Sargent is fourth in the Ivy with a time of 53.67. In the 50 breast, she's second in the Ivy League at 29.20. 100 breast, third in the conference at 101.84. She is really swimming a lot of different things. You've got the back, the breast. She's really a versatile player. I'm surprised that she's not in the tops in the IM, that individual medley, because she's got that versatility in two different strokes. Along with her, Caroline Riggs in the 1,000 free, she is third in the Ivy League at 9:48.12. In the 1650, she's fourth in the Ivy League at 16:37.48. And in the 4IM, she's second in the conference at 4:17.11. Jessie Lee, another big piece out here for the Bulldogs. First in the conference in the 50 breast at 28.39, 64th in D1. 100 breast, first in the Ivy League at 1:14. That is an NCAA qualifying time at 46th in D1. In the 200 breast, she's second in the Ivy League at 2:13.62. So there you get a little bit of a recap of the Yale and UConn women's teams that come in as powerhouses in Division I. As we continue along here in the 1,000, once again, your longest event of the day. Got a lot of swimmers on different lengths as Yale and UConn jumping out to a lead. That is Phillips out there in lane 4 for UConn. In lane 5, it is Katie for Yale, who I think is really jumping out to that big league. As there's the bell that signifies your last lap here for Morgan Katie, the 20-year-old out of Yale. Going to assume that she is a sophomore. As Katie swimming along, she's got a big commanding lead across anybody here in this 1,000 as she'll hit the line. As it looks like she's neck and neck there with Aricchio, but Aricchio a couple laps behind Katie, excuse me. As Katie continuing along, she'll stretch out for the line. And she will get your first place finish there. Looks like about 10:28 is what Katie swam there in lane 5, as it looks like the clock has not stopped up there on the big board, but Katie finishes that 1,000. Continuing along, though, it is Yale and UConn in lane 7 there. That is Griffin of UConn. Coming in third and fourth there, you've got UConn and Yale taking up both of those spots. Phillips rounding out the top 4 finishers. As Southern Connecticut will continue to swim along here in lane 3, that is Lakshmi Garofalo. And in lane 6, that is Jasmine Uricchio. Zaricchio finishes the 1,000 there. 11:01.09 there for Jazz Zaricchio. Rachel Bing and Garofalo still the two completing it out here, the two freshmen for the Owls. As Garofalo in lane 3, it looks like she's on her last lap. She will stretch out for the, oh, never mind. She's going to hit the flip turn and get ready for that last lap. I thought she was set to finish that one up. But taking this race home, it is the Bulldogs. 45-25 on that last split. 10:40.96 overall is their winning time. That is lane 5, Morgan Cady, who took this one home. And in the men's 1,000, it's going to be a smaller competing pool. Just Southern and Yale, like I mentioned on the men's side. Sam Whitaker and Dylan Pressure and Aiden Kennedy will be your Southern Connecticut, along with 2 swimmers from Yale. As we are still rounding out the 1,000, Rachel Bing rounding it out for Southern Connecticut. As we're going to get set for the men's 1,000, I'm going to get you some notes there. Well, we had an interview a couple weeks ago with Dylan Pressure, who will be swimming the men's 1,000, as he is, as I like to describe him, a distance animal is how I like to describe Dylan Pressure. And I will be able to talk about him, his comments with me a couple weeks ago before that CSI meet at the end of the 1,000 here. For Southern Connecticut, I mentioned Aiden Kennedy, Dylan Pressure. Sam Whitaker, I believe, is your last competitor. He is. Sam Whitaker has had a great start to the season, especially against CSI, taking home one of those individual event wins, along with his freshman counterpart, Mason Durant. We get ready here for the 1,000. They'll get up on the blocks here. You watch Pressure in lane 4. You watch Pressure in lane 4 surrounded by 2 Bulldogs. Kennedy out there on an island in lane 6, and in lane 2, that is Whitaker. It's Pressure. We'll see how he fares against these Division I competition. Is Pressure probably, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say he is the best male distance swimmer this year in the conference. I haven't seen all schools yet, but Dylan Pressure is something else. Speaking of Dylan Pressure, caught up with him 2 weeks ago before the CSI meet, and I'd like to share what he said with all of you. Dylan Pressure, what makes him unique is that he was not able to compete last year. Pressure sat out last season, a red shirt, as we're going to talk a little bit about what that felt like for him. He said, I think the best part of this season is being able to compete. He said, I truly never left the water last year. I was practicing with the team, which was great, but nothing compares to being able to compete. And speaking of competing, how about competing against the top dogs in Yale and UConn as a real way to compete? He talked about the Wagner meet they had earlier in the season. That's 2 more Division I foes, CCSU and Wagner, that came here to the Hutch a little while earlier on in the season. Pressure said Wagner was a meet that he really enjoyed. He liked getting to race against tough opponents, which is exactly what he gets to do today. When you watch Northeast 10 swimming and you watch the 1,000 and the 1650, you see Dylan Pressure miles ahead of the competition. But here, he's trailing against Yale, which is kind of what you expect because these Yale swimmers, a lot of them are just in a league of their own. They're freaks of nature, as he really enjoyed getting to race tough opponents. Talked about the team performance. He said, I think this team is performing exceptionally well. We got some people who are experiencing some injuries, but all in all, every member we had at the start of the season is here right now. He said he thinks it's a big adjustment coming into the water off of not competing in front of people at all. He's been training and competing well and looking to continue that over the next little under 3 months, which has decreased since this interview. He's truly excited for what the next couple months has in store. It goes quick, but these next 2 months are where the improvement happens. Everyone's in shape now, pushing one another in the pool. This is when the new gears are found that create a championship team. Talk about a great quote. Pressure says one of his biggest goals for the season are to turn his underwaters off the walls into a strength. It has never been a strong part of his strokes, so he looks to continue to improve them and make them as strong as they can be for conference. Pressure, a captain of the men's team, along with Nick Zerva and Samir Sweetie. I caught up with Nick Zerva twice so far this season. We'll get you info from both of those interviews later on in the broadcast. Pressure says being a captain has been a big learning curve for him and the three of them. He said he's lucky to have those two great guys, Nick Zerva and Samir Sweetie, who he can communicate with really well on both sides, but especially on the men's side. The three of us, they're similar. They have the same goal in mind to win conference. Doing it with Nick and Samir has been a great opportunity. I think we all complement each other's strengths and weaknesses well. After reading that, back to the splits, 31-30 for Pressure, 28-08 for your top Yale swimmer. As that's a full 3 seconds that separate Pressure and that top Yale swimmer. Pressure out there in lane 4, Kennedy in lane 6 out there swimming along, as we'll get you his split right when it pops up, 32-32 for Aiden Kennedy. 31-40 out there for Whitaker in lane 2, so Whitaker and Pressure competing against each other here on the southern side, but it is the Yale guys who are running this race. All out there as seniors, I believe, on this Yale squad. As now that we got some time, let's talk a little bit about these men's programs. We mentioned Southern Connecticut at the top of the broadcast. I'm going to talk about Yale's men's team. 2-0, defeating Brown 193-107 and Columbia 194-106. They're 26th ranked in the entirety of Division I and first in the Ivy League. Talk about a powerhouse coming into the Hutch. They've got some really great swimmers on the watch list. I think the guy who leads it, though, is Nick Finch, the sophomore out of London, England. He's the #1 fastest time in the Ivy League at 18:96, which he scored at the Ohio Invitational. That qualifies him for NCAA Division I championships. That is in the 50 free. That is 15th best in the entirety of Division I. He also has the top time in the 100 free at 42:24, which is good for first in the Ivy League, and qualifies him for the NCAA Division I championship. That is 30th in the entirety of Division I. Now, you think this kid is a good freestyle swimmer. He's even better at the fly. In the 50 fly, he's got the top time in the Ivy League at 20:64. That is 8th in Division I. The 100 fly, top time in the Ivy League, 44:62. That is 6th in the entirety of Division I. This kid is the definition of a freak of nature. He's the British world record holder in the 100-meter butterfly, Commonwealth Youth Games record holder in the 50-meter butterfly, world junior record holder in the 4x50 mixed freestyle relay, and he represented England at the Commonwealth Youth Games, represented Great Britain at European Juniors, and on top of that, he volunteered in Trinidad and Tobago. There's something about this guy. And the thought that I had while doing research was, how did this kid end up in New Haven, Connecticut at Yale University? And they put a quote right on his bio, perfect for me to steal. I was captivated by the environment and opportunities Yale has to offer. I'm eager to pursue athletic excellence while also immersing myself in a community where I can explore my passions both in and out of the pool. And if you're looking for a place to immerse yourself in academics and what is beyond being an athlete, Yale is one of the best universities to do that. Along with him, Noah Millard, another top swimmer for the Bulldogs. In the 200 free, he leads the Ivy League at 134.22. In the 500 free, he leads the conference at 414.51, which already qualifies him for the NCAA Division I National Championships. He's 17th in the entirety of Division I. In the 1650 free, he leads the conference at 14:52.11. Already qualified him for the NCAA Division I National Championships. He's 9th in the entirety of Division I. This Yale swim team, they are something else, man. Charlie Edgeland, another top swimmer in the breaststroke. 50 breast, he leads the Ivy League at 24:28, 26th in Division I. 100 breast, 52:03, that is a Ivy League leading time, 25th in D1. 200 breast leads the Ivy League, 155.56, 54th in Division I. They all lead the conference. Yale holds top 4 times and number 6 in the 50 breast as well. So breaststroke is really a big selling point for the Bulldogs. As we're back here into the live action for the men's 1,000. You see Pressure there in lane 4. Yale swimmer out there in lane 5 is The Yale swimmer's ahead by a couple lengths, but Pressure out there pacing himself with him. 29:48 for Yale's Zacharias, and 31:27 for Pressure out there in lane 4 as his last split. These guys swimming 7 minutes right now, and they're getting close to the end of this race. That is really impressive for this squad to swim this fast in the 1,000, as you've got them continuing to swim along here. As it looks like lane 3 might be your leader here. The Yale Bulldogs up the top. Aiden Kennedy out there all alone in lane 6. Whitaker in lane 2 on his 31st length. As they'll continue to swim along here. 31 lengths for Kennedy as well, as you got James Custer helping time him out there in lane 6. As we're going to talk a little bit about James Custer later on in the broadcast, as Zerva mentioned him in the interview that I did with him this week. Look at how fast that kick is out there from lane 3. You just see it. It just goes super fast out there in lane 3 for Yale. I can't imagine kicking my legs that fast on land, let alone in the water. The 900 mark here in the 8 minutes for Yale as the bell starts to ring for lane 3. We might get an under 10-minute 1,000 free time. As in the Division II level, that is unheard of. But Yale coming in here as one of the top powerhouses in D1. Pressure continuing along in lane 4, 30:21, I believe that said was his last split. And continuing along in lane 3, the Bulldogs keep coming. And he'll touch the line, finish that one out. 9:16:32. As with very few Division I teams that come here to the Hutch, that is the first sub-10-minute time I've seen all season in the 1,000. Kennedy still going strong in lane 6. Still going strong out there in lane 5 as your other Yale swimmer. As he will touch the line, finish it out there in second place. 9:39:40 is... It's just the Southern guys left, but in a meet against Yale that is such a big powerhouse, look for Southern to try to rack up those 3rd and 4th place finishes that still get them points out there in these events. Continuing along here in lane 4, that is Pressure. He's got the lead for your Owls competitors, as you've got Whitaker and Kennedy, lanes 2 and 6, but Pressure out there leading for the Owls. Pressure will finish that one up, 10:13:90 for Dylan Pressure. So we're going to take a quick peek and see where that ranks in the conference so far this season in the 1,000. As swimming that out, Aiden Kennedy finishes it up, 10:25:65. As let's get you into Division II Northeast 10 rankings, because that's what we should be focusing on here. This is a Southern home meet. As we're going to get set for the 200, I believe, next on the women's side. As we're going to go to the men's 1,000 free rankings. Dylan Pressure's top time of the season, 10:08:13. That was against WPI. That is good for 7th in the Northeast 10. Behind the 9 minutes and 30 seconds at the top from Bridgeport swimmers. As Bridgeport, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in Division II in the Northeast 10 this season. As we are going to get ready for the women's 200, this is your first event with multiple heats today. The 200, Jade Ventura out of Southern Connecticut, and Jillian Pitchell will be your Owls competitors. 2 Yukons, Claire Lippert, Nadine Amin, another competitor, and Caroline McCurdy for Yale in lane 5. As 200-yard free, we are set to go now. Watch Ventura in lane 3 and Pitchell in lane 6. Pitchell's been pretty big for this Owls team so far. She's been definitely contributing to some of those individual event wins as well as their back-to-back team wins against WPI and CSI. Ventura, the back of the pack there. And a nice job there from Pitchell to remain about a body length away from these top Division I competitors. But here's where lanes 4 and 5 begin to separate themselves. Lippert and McCurdy. Continuing on and on, this is a neck-and-neck race between Yale and UConn. One thing I love to say is I love those red swimsuits that UConn is wearing today. Those are awesome. Continuing along, though, McCurdy and Lippert neck and neck here in lanes 4 and 5. As reaching out, oh, never mind, they're going to hit another flip turn. In the 200 here, they are still neck and neck. We'll see if somebody turns on the jets, puts on the afterburners here to try and come up. But you see Pitchell start to fall behind to those Division I competitors as they start to ratchet it up. Lanes 4 and 5 still. Lippert, McCurdy, neck and neck. Who can win it here? McCurdy and Lippert. It looks like Lippert's got a bit of a lead there for UConn as they're going to hit another flip turn here. As they are really doing a nice job pacing off each other. 29.47 for Lippert, 29.54 for McCurdy. They're doing an awesome job pacing off of each other in this first heat. As continuing along here, McCurdy now pulling out to a bit of a lead. That is something she hasn't had yet. She will continue along here. Touch the line. That is going to be McCurdy of Yale in first place, 154.53. Lippert in second, 154.92. And we will see who rounds out third. It looks like it's going to be that UConn swimmer in lane 7. That is a mean 2:03.87 as Southern continues to pull along. Getting in fourth, gaining some points for the Owls. That's Pitchell at 2:07.20. And Jade Ventura will round it out in 2:15. As we're going to get to another length here of the 200-yard freestyle. Owls competitors, Sierra Ducharme and Erilyn Vogel. Vogel picked up an individual event win at CSI. We'll see if she can continue building on that success here at the Hutch right now. As I want to talk a little bit more about the Southern Connecticut women's swim team. It's a sprint freestyle event, so I'll save my comments about Molly Kennedy for a little while on, but a huge shout out to Molly Kennedy in particular for helping me out get a lot of this stuff down as continue to flip through the packet here, folks, as we get set for Heat 2. As here's some history and background on your Southern Connecticut women's side. Little history and background, they lost a lot of big pieces. 9 seniors, Ariana Arturi, Justice Glasgow, Jordan Herman, Brooke Keeney, Ella Marzik, Lindsay McCauley, Haley Nyquist, Abby Peach, and Natalie Weir. Those seniors, 23 gold medals, well, 23 medals rather, at Northeast 10 championships. Justice Glasgow was the biggest piece. She earned an All-American and competed in the NCAA Division II championship for the 3rd straight year. Molly Kennedy, a piece that returns, though. Kennedy named Sport Excellence Award winner for women's swimming and diving. Kennedy and Paola Castillo named to the NE10 All-Conference team last year. And Tim Quill named the Women's Swimming and Diving Coach of the Year, as we're going to get back to Heat 2 of the 200. Yale and UConn neck and neck in lanes 4 and 5. That is Walker and Watsis. Walker and Watsis neck and neck, but lane 2 emerging as well for Yale. As we're going to look at the heat sheet here. Lane 2, that is Julia Ebley. Ebley, Walker, and Hotsis. Neck and neck here, lanes 2, 4, and 5, as this is going to be a race between those 2 Division I top dogs as they hit the flip turn. Falling behind a little bit there on that flip is Ebley. It looks like it's going to be a race between lanes 4 and 5. Lane 7, though, keeping up a little bit, that is Hoffman. A flip turn again. Hotsis, Walker, battling here in lanes 4 and 5. It looks like Hotsis is going to get a bit more of a lead, and she will touch the line first. 28.54 is her last split, 152.98, 153.73 for Walker. Hoffman in third, and another UConn swimmer out there in lane 7 in third. As we're going to get set for the men's 200-yard freestyle, James Custer, Richie Hall, Nick Zerva, and Jack Simmons. I caught up with Zerva again this week. This time, unfortunately, it could not have been in person. our last interview in person was, I'm just going to say it, the best one we've had all season. These are Nick Zerva's comments, and I said I was going to start it a couple weeks ago, a segment here that I like to call the Zerva Shout-Out of the Week. And the Zerva Shout-Out of the Week on the men's side goes to James Custer. James Custer, he said he started off the season a little slow. However, he has been crushing it in practice recently, and it's been awesome to see him improve and gain confidence in the water. Along with this, Nick Zerva had a couple other comments to share, as we're going to share those at the start of the race. He was talking about racing, getting the privilege to race Yale, as that's how they see it. As that's how these swimmers see it. They see it as a privilege to race these top programs. He said, for starters, we love racing faster teams because our philosophy is that it makes us better. However, losing is not fun. No one likes losing. So when we go up against an opponent that we know we can beat, especially if it's an opponent in the conference, we jump on that opportunity to get a win. So I'd say it's less about something clicking and more about all of us coming together with the singular goal of winning the meet. That's about how his response to the team doing very well against CSI. This is more so his response about swimming against these top programs. Swimming against Yale is a big opportunity for us. They have world-class athletes who rank among the best in the country. Like I said, our philosophy is that when we race faster competition, it makes us better. So this is a prime example of it. We feel if we're able to even come close to the Yale swimmers, we will be more prepared for the conference opponents that we will see more of as the season goes on. He said, also I'd like to add that we appreciate teams like Yale and UConn coming to Southern to race us so much. They don't have to do this, but they do it because of their respect they have for us and our program. So that's big words to say about Yale and UConn, and shout out to them, these two Division I programs, for coming to Southern to compete. I know a lot of it happens because of their great relationship with Coach Quill and Coach Moran and Coach Griffith. But it's really awesome to see these top-tier athletes in the pool. Let's get back to the action with the top-tier athletes here. Lanes 3 and 5 are the ones jumping out. Finn Henry in lane 3, Hammer Massey in lane 5. What a name. Lee, though, coming away with the win. That is Elliott Lee. He was one of those swimmers on the watch list for sure. And Finn Henry in second. Rounding out third is Massey of Yale. Rounding out fourth, though, that is Richie Hall. It's a nice job by the sophomore to jump over the senior and Nick Zerva to get a place. As we're going to go to the 100-yard backstroke here on the women's side, another event with 2 heats, as we're going to see Devin Sargent out there in Heat 2, who we recapped in those swimmers on the watch list. So let's see what kind of a time she can throw down. Your Southern competitors, Ava Emmerich and Lexi Dominguez. Your UConn competitors, Zoe Griffin, Kirsten O'Connor, Michelle Chen, and Mabel Koff, along with your Heat 2 competitors are from Yale. In Heat 2, you'll have Sarah Roney, Julia Pitchell, UConn's Molly Rogers, and Rion Russell, and Devin Sargent and Elle Dunnigan for Yale. As we are already at event 7 out of 28, which starting out at 4:42, we are well ahead of schedule here at the Hutch, but something to note, the reason why we might be well ahead of schedule and not here for as long as a typical meet is the divers are all at Yale. In this meet, I don't really know why they do it this way, but in this meet they always do divers at Yale, swimmers at the Hutch. They'll turn at the line, though. This is lanes 4 and 5. Jumping out to a bit of a lead, that is O'Connor of UConn. As O'Connor continues along here, hits the flip turn in the 100 back, she'll go for another length. It's really a race between lanes 4 and 5. They do that a lot in these. Koff and O'Connor, Yale and UConn, 27.96 for Koff, 28.20 for O'Connor. as they'll continue to battle here in lanes 4 and 5. They'll hit the flip. Continuing along here, O'Connor, Koff, neck and neck. If you cough, you might miss this one. As rounding it out, finishing it up, right there is Koff, 57.39, O'Connor, 52.70. A great job by both of those two swimmers to really push each other to the line. Griffin at third, 59.55. As those will be your top three finishers as we get set for Heat 2 of the women's 100-yard backstroke. I mentioned Sargent as probably the biggest player to watch in this race. Watch Sargent out there. I've been saying it on repeat. I feel like a broken record right now, but that is really the person to take a look at here in this race, as we're going to rattle off those accomplishments for Sargent again. Second in the Ivy League in the 200 back with a time of 156.87. The 50 back, she's third in the Ivy League with a time of 25.07. In the 100 back, Sargent is fourth in the Ivy League at 53.67. 50 breast, she's second in the Ivy League at 29.20. 100 breast, third in the conference at 101.84. As Sargent, it looks like she's going to be out there in lane 2. She'll hit the flip. We'll see where she ends up after that on the split. 27.32, I believe, is the split there for Sargent. As if those splits for 1 and 2 come out a little stagnant, we are having a bit of a problem with the board in here. And that's what I'm reading the splits off of. Russell, 28.02, 27.09 for Dunnigan. Pitchell, 30.91. Rogers also out there performing very well. Lane 5 and lane 2 look like they are leading the race as they're going to come in. Dunnigan in second. That leaves our top swimmer there to be Sargent in lane 2. As that will get us through Heat 2 of the women's 100-yard backstroke. We're going to get set for the men's 100-yard backstroke. But before we do, I'm going to take a quick second. We'll be back just after the break. We are back from the short intermission I took there. When you talk for a swim meet, it's usually a pretty long time, and you're kind of competing with the PA guy. So I'm stressing my vocal cords a little bit, folks, but it's all for you back home. So we get set here. Men's version of the 100 back. Your Southern Connecticut competitors, Chris Janney, Vincent Roney, are your two owls. And swimming in this one is Nicholas Finch. Talked about him a little bit earlier. I want to watch this kid because I'm just going to say it. He's probably one of the best athletes in Division I across the entire nation. Kid is absolutely insane. So they're going to continue along here. Lane 3, Lee. Jumping out a little bit. That is lane 1, too. I believe that is Finch out there. Or lane 5, excuse me, that is Finch. He's got the lead. We detailed Finch's accomplishments earlier on in the broadcast. The sophomore out of London, England, is just absolutely ridiculous. As he'll hit the line there, 26.49, 50.07 for Nicholas Finch. He is such a huge piece of this program. As he'll take the lead, Lee will take second, Kalshik will take third, and in fourth will be another Yale swimmer. As we detailed Finch's accomplishments earlier, and not only is he an athlete, but he's a good Samaritan as well. I feel like that's what Yale looks for. They look for kids who are athletes, but they also look for kids who they know are going to succeed in their academic offerings. And on top of that, they look for kids who are just good people. And that's what this Nicholas Finch kid seems like. I mean, I've never met the guy, but when you can say that you did volunteer work in Trinidad and Tobago, you're a pretty good human. As we are back here, 100-yard breaststroke, another two-heat event. As we are flying here, event 9 on the heat sheet on your little program here. Event 9, but we got 28 in total, so still some more to go. It's not like we're looking to end anytime soon. As here we are, breaststroke, 200-yard breaststroke on the women's side. As you look at just how far they travel underwater off the jump, it's almost 3/4 of a length already completed. Ainsley Dahl, Emma St. Hilaire, your Southern Connecticut competitors in heat 1. As they'll continue along here, but with the lead, that is lane 5, that is Lee of Yale, as she was definitely on our women's swimmers on the watch list. Jessie Lee, first in the 50 breast at 28:39. That is 64th in Division I. She is first in the Ivy League at 1:14 in the 100 breast, which is what an NCAA qualifying time. That is what this Yale team does. They are 46th in D1. That is Lee. 200 breast, she's second in the Ivy League at 2:13.62. So we'll see if she can break that 2:13.62 mark here at the Hutch. It's Lee's race out there in lane 5. It's her world and nobody else is in it, as she'll touch the line there for 102.76. As that was a 100 breaststroke in 102.76. So a couple seconds off of her best time that leads the Ivy League, but nonetheless, Lee takes home the first place points anyway. As we're going to get to heat 2, Allison Kidos, one of the Southern Connecticut swimmers, along with Ellie Baker. I caught up with Allie Kidos this week. As this week, my main goal was to learn a little bit about the perspective of the women's team. I had some prior affiliations with the men's team. I was good friends with last year's diver, Jonathan Tressel, who I don't see in the audience today, which is odd because he's been at almost every single meet. Maybe he's at Yale watching the divers. But I had a very good friendship there with Jonathan Tressel over the last few years. We lived together junior year, so huge shout out to him for getting me involved with these swimmers. As through him, I gained better relationships with a lot of the other guys, and that's how I got a lot of the info on the men's side. But I didn't have a lot of connections on the women's side until this week. Spoke with Allie Kidos. Let's talk about her personal start to the season as she's out there. My start of the season, I would say, is the best start I've had in my whole collegiate career. The times I'm putting down now are times I didn't even reach midseason last year. I'm doing very well with my mental mindset and fueling my body with the right foods needed for energy, which is why I think this year is going so well for me. I still need to work on the little things like reaching and extending my stroke, but each day in practice, it is always on my mind, and I am always working on it. I would say one word describes Allie Kidos after that response, and it's dialed. As her phone bill must be high with how dialed Allie Kidos has been so far this season. But out there in lane 4, leading it off, that is Perkins of UConn. Sydney Perkins hits the line, 105.01. Your second place swimmer from UConn as well, but Baker and Kidos both finished before the Yale swimmer. Nice job by Southern Connecticut to take both places 3 and 4 against Division I competition. As we're going to get set for the men's 100-yard breaststroke, but before that, I want to read off a little bit more of what Kidos said because she did a very good job answering my questions. She said she's most excited to see how our women's team competes at any 10s this season, especially the freshman class. There's so many of them. With all them showing great progress and times, I'm so excited how each one of them will compete after 1 year of collegiate training with their times in February at the conference meet. I think another really interesting answer that Kitos gave to me was, I asked about the goals for the season, and she said the main goal for the rest of the season is to remain motivated. A lot of these swimmers, they really have a tangible goal out there, like win Northeast 10 Conference Championships, send some people to nationals, things like that. But that's a really it's a really interesting answer to the goal question, as staying motivated is really what gets you to all of those things. So I really like that answer I got from Ali Kitos. She said, with the holiday season coming up, it's important to remain locked in with our swimming goals. We can't take any breaks, and we need to continue putting in the work even when we are at home. Speaking of the holiday season, one of those typical mainstays in the holiday season for the swim team is that they head to Florida for a training trip, and they're going to be out of the pool for a month. Well, out of this pool for a month. So we'll see how they stay locked in. That's a big problem for winter sports. Lane 5 leading the way, that is Saber. Jack Saber in lane 5 for Yale. Your SCSU competitors, Corbin Concliffe, Zach Krantz, Sam Whitaker, and Chris Janney. Most of them we have seen already. As leading it off still, that is lane 5, Saber and Mountain Takas in lane 3. Lane 5 moving along here, neck and neck between 3 and 5. We'll see who finishes first. That is Saber, followed by Mountain Takas of Yale. As we'll see if the Southern guys can beat out these Yale swimmers. Finishing third there is another Yale guy out there in lane 2. Taking up the 4th spot, though, that is Sam Whitaker. Talked about Whitaker at the top of the broadcast as the rookies are starting to take over. Whitaker and Durant, two of those big rookies taking over. Whitaker in 4th, 104.52. That was double digits in events, as we're going to get to event 11, the butterfly. On the women's side, the 200-yard version of the butterfly. Lillian Teal, Stella McCarty, and Olivia Herbert, lanes 4, 5, and 7. Callie Dominguez and Lakshmi Garofalo, lanes 3 and 6. I talked a little bit about Callie Dominguez. I recapped what she responded to me with in those interviews. I just want to give a big shout out to Callie Dominguez for responding to my questions, along with everyone else who took the time. As let's recap a little bit of what Dominguez said to me as she's out there in lane 6 in the butterfly. Goal is to continue to train hard. I would love to post some more top times in the NE10. Said that already. She talked about competing with her dad, well, her dad being a captain at Southern, her brother being captain at Southern, and now her being a captain at Southern. It's a real full circle moment for Dominguez. We recapped a lot of those Dominguez responses, so I'm not going to get to them again, as we're just going to focus on the action in the pool. 28.77 there for Herbert. 30.11 for Dominguez, 29.09 for McCarty. 29.67 for Teal of Yale. As they continue to swim along here, lane 4 looks like it's got the lead. Herbert. And competing with her is McCarty out there in lane 7. Dominguez in lane 6 behind both of those top swimmers. It looks like she might round out in 4th. But there's still more of this race to compete here in the fly. We didn't talk too much about the UConn women's team. So if we can find that info, I'll read it off for you. Continuing along here, though, in lane 4, that is Herbert. Herbert continues to push through, and she will touch the line and hit the flip turn again. 33.16 was that time. As the star athletes on UConn's women's team that I was able to round up are really Jessica Shang, second time in the Big East at 53, 22.56 the Iowa Invitational. Nora Rome, Ryan Russell, Molly Rogers, Bella Hoffman, and Sydney Perkins. None of those athletes, though, swim the fly. So it could be an area for Yale and Southern Connecticut to take advantage, but it's not looking like that right now with Herbert. Herbert will get to the line there in first, 2:07.69. 2:11.11 for Teal. As you see Herbert in first, that is a huge lead that she had on second place. That is almost 4 seconds. That is 4 seconds. Almost 4 seconds. I'm no math major, folks, and it shows right there. Dominguez in fourth for Southern Connecticut, 2:18.23, and in third, McCarty for UConn, 2:14.94. So a big race for the Huskies. They get times 1 and 3, Yale in 2, Southern Connecticut in 4, as we're going to get set for Heat 2. Of the 200-yard butterfly, we got Claire Hanna, a freshman, Paula Castillo, a senior. Castillo, one of those swimmers on the watch list for sure for this Owls women's squad. As the success for Castillo we are off here. So I want to talk a little bit about that Southern Connecticut swim team from last year. I mentioned Paula Castillo, named to the NE10 All-Conference team last season. But Southern Connecticut captured their 5th consecutive NE10 championship last year. The women put up 1,081 points, which is their 2nd year in a row scoring over 1K points. Bentley was behind them at 719. You look at that scoring margin, that is ridiculous. A lot of medals come from the seniors. Molly Kennedy, a big piece, and Castillo also a huge piece of Southern Connecticut this season so far. So watch out for her out there in lane 6. And with Fondersmith in lane 7, we got a little 6-7 action out there at the far end of the pool. Continuing along here, this is Heat 2, as I mentioned, of the 200 fly. As they'll continue along in the 200 fly, hitting the flip turn there first is Martino of lane 4 of UConn. As that is Alexis Martino. Martino was a nickname I had in my middle school science class, so a little partial there to Alexis Martino. And shout out on the broadcast there to Dr. Keith Smolinski. Great nickname that he gave me back in the day. Only person to ever call me Martino ever. 33-48 is your last split for Alexis Martino. 133-27. Out there in lane 5, that is Lee. We've seen her compete in multiple events already. As these swimmers who compete in multiple events, you'd think that they get a little tired, but they still compete at the top level in every single event that they're in. It's a real testament to these swimmers and how well conditioned they are. Arguably the best conditioned team at the school. So Martino will round out second, Lee in third, Fondersmith in fourth. Rounding out in the 1 spot, I believe there was lane 2. Angela Wang. We're going to get set for the men's version. Samir Sweetie, Mason Durant, Nick Fournier, your competitors in the 200-yard butterfly. This feels like a different stroke for Fournier. I know Fournier is a big breaststroke guy. I could be wrong on that about Nick Fournier, though. Speaking of Nicholas Fournier, and for those, we're going to get you some comments that I had with Nick Fournier before that home meet. if I can find them. Here we are. Fournier, a unique angle along with pressure out of the water last year. How does it feel to be back in the water after a full season of competing? Fournier responds, it feels really good. It's been a bit weird being in the pool. Again, instead of holding a clipboard or helping run the meets, it's definitely an adjustment. But so far, I think I'm doing a great job with it. Fournier continued along. Asked him about the team performance. Said, I think the team's doing pretty well so far. A lot of good swims all around early in the season. Also some tough competition earlier in the year. What has gone well for us, though, is our mentality. We want to race. We wake up every morning wanting to be better. We encourage each other in the pool, weight room, academically, and in the locker room. What we need to do is just keep all the hard work. Keep building each other up. Keep rising to the occasion. Fournier said, I asked Fournier how he's specifically doing afterwards. He said, me specifically, I think I'm in a good spot. I'm lifting heavier. I'm swimming faster. Currently, I am faster now at this point than I was at the point in the season 2 years ago before I redshirted. Kid's excited for conference. He wants to see how good he can be after all this training and what he'll be swimming. I want to see how my teammates do as well. Fournier wants to break 2:10 and 1 minute in the breast events. Those are his personal goals. And he really loves competing against these Division I teams. He said competing against Division I teams in the season pushes us to a higher standard right away. Racing faster athletes helps us develop our race strategies and get comfortable. The conference, but recently over years, to get comfortable. As we're going to get back into the live action here. Fournier in lane 6. But out there in lane 3, Nurkic Casafor ends up winning it. And Cano Figueroa, it's a race of the double last names here. As first and second, Yale swimmers both featuring 2 last names. Third, that is Mason Durant, one of those rookies who turned it on in that last meet against WPI. And rounding it out, Nick Fournier in 5th, 2:15.01. Now that we matched up that men's 200-yard butterfly, the women's 50 free is next. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back just after the break. Back in action here, Heat 1 of the women's 50 free. Rena Loacano, Zoe McNeil, and Zoe McNeil, lanes 3 and 6. Yale and UConn competitors in between them as they're going to cross the line first. 24.80, 24.40 for your top 2. McNeil in 5th, Loacano in 4th, 26.18. I'm sorry, folks, that I wasn't able to be with you for that whole race. I tried to drink a bunch of water quickly in between the break, and it didn't like me. It's so fitting, though, at the pool that my issue to not get back to the broadcast is water-related. I'll be with you for Heat 2, though. Sarah Plunkett, Jessica Shang, Julia Ebley, and Kirsten O'Connor, your competitors for Yale and UConn. Molly Kennedy and Emily Denise. As this is something I've been excited for all day, is how will Molly Kennedy fare against the Division I competition? For those who don't know, those who are new to Southern Swim, Molly Kennedy is probably the best sprint freestyler on the women's side in the Northeast 10 Conference. And on top of that, she may be one of the best sprint freestylers in the entirety of Division II. So I'm really excited to see how these girls can push Kennedy in lane 6. Because again, in the Northeast 10, she doesn't have the most competition. Molly Kennedy in lane 6 is neck and neck with all the Division I competitors as they go to the line. They're going to finish this one out as, oh my goodness, Molly Kennedy won the event. 24-11. Molly Kennedy just beat a pool full of Division I competition. That is insane. The junior out of Prospect, Connecticut continues to absolutely dominate, and that is exactly why she was Nick Zerva's shout out of the week. As that is something to celebrate. 24-11 for Molly Kennedy. She is your back-to-back swimmer of the week in the Northeast 10 Conference, and she's just continuing to build. That was awesome. I talked about Molly Kennedy, the back-to-back Any 10 Swimmer of the Week awards. Against the College of Staten Island, she started off as the anchor leg of Southern Connecticut's 200-yard medley relay that won the event with a time of 1:53.29. She followed that up with a 200-yard freestyle win at 1:56.44. That is a new best in the conference. Kennedy followed that up with her second individual meet win of the day, 500-yard freestyle, crossing the line in 5:21.15. But this is the 50 free on the men's side, as this is a big race too. All people neck and neck here. It looks like lane 3, that is Lee, who ended up winning it, but Fry in the top 3 as well for Southern Connecticut, as Jack Fry, a big piece of the Southern Connecticut team. I mentioned him on the watch list earlier on. And what a race, though, from Jack Fry to finish top 3 against Division I, and Molly Kennedy to beat an entire pool of Division I competition. Here we are for the 100. Event number 15. As it looks like we're going to get some of the swimmers to jump in, take a quick break, warm up a little bit. If we're going to get a quick break here, I'm going to get a quick break on the broadcast, as we're going to be back just after the intermission here. We are back in action here after our intermission that I can tell you at home I really needed. Heat 1 of the 100-yard freestyle this time, a bit longer of a sprint event. Jillian Pitchell and Ellen Baker, your Southern Connecticut competitors. At the front of the race, though, the front of the pack, that is Yale out there. That is McCurdy. We've seen her compete already today. She'll hit the fifth turn at the 50 mark, and McCurdy 25-35. She's starting to expand that lead there. Is Caroline McCurdy in lane 5. Along with her in lane 4, that is Kylie Kiefer of UConn just behind. McCurdy, Kiefer. Little neck and neck here, but this looks like it's McCurdy's race. She finishes that one 52.90. In second place, that is Kiefer, 53.80. Third is Pitchell of Southern Connecticut, and rounding out the 5 spot is Baker of SCSU. But back in the pool, she already dethroned the Division I competition. It's Molly Kennedy. Lane 3, can she continue to show Division I that although she's a division lower, she might be better than them? Molly Kennedy, she's got the top times in the conference for the 50 and 100 free. Against WPI, she won both of them. Or correction, she won the 50 free and placed second in the 100. No, she won both of them. Sorry, I can't read. I can't comprehend my own English sometimes. She placed second in the 100-yard butterfly. Finished 50-yard free, 24-29, ranked top in the Northeast 10 Conference so far this season. 50 free time times her for 74th in the entirety of D2. But that was before today. Let's see if Molly can still dethrone this Division I competition. She is out there in lane 3, and look at her go. 3, 4, and 5 are the front of this race as Kennedy hits that first turn. Off the first turn, she is a little bit behind, though. And now she catches up again. You see Molly Kennedy, she had that little surge right there. Behind by about, I don't know, maybe a head and shoulder length, and then hits the surge, turns on the turbo a little bit, and catches back up. Her split 25-53, it leads everyone. Kennedy continues to lead against Division I competition. This is insanity. She hits the flip turn again. Kennedy continuing to grind it out against these top two. The Southern Connecticut team is going insane. Kennedy continues. You can see her form break down, but it doesn't even matter. 52-29. Southern Connecticut, the common sentiment across the team all this week when I've been talking to them is when you race against faster competition, it pushes you to get faster. And it's working for Molly Kennedy. 52-29 in the 100 free. Gee willikers. That 52-29, her previous top time, 52-81. That's a shatter for Molly Kennedy. And she's already back-to-back swimmer of the week. If she doesn't get it a third week in a row, that would be wild, and they've got tomorrow to go as well. The women's swim team and the men of Southern, they all travel up to Pace tomorrow for a Northeast 10 conference battle. But here we are, the men's version, the 100. 100 free to be exact. Ben Frazier out there in lane 4 as he's behind that leader of the pack. It's lanes 3 and 5. Ackerley of Yale and Nurkic Kasapur of lane 5. I am really sorry that I'm probably butchering his name multiple times, but like I said earlier, I don't have a pronunciation guide, so bear with me, folks, on these international names that Yale is pulling in. Lane 3, though, Ackerley. In the lead, it looks like he's going to hit the line first, and he'll get there. 46.04 for Ackerley. Nurkic Kasapur, 46.89. Believe that's Jack Fry rounding out third and Ben Frazier in fourth. So a decent performance there from Southern Connecticut to gain 2 places. as it looks like Coach Tim Quill is going to talk to Ben Frazier down there in lane 4 as finished up the 100 freestyle right there. We're going to go to the 200 backstroke. You got Lexi Dominguez and Ainsley Dahl as your competitors for Southern Connecticut in Heat 1. As a dual heat event is not strange for today's women's side of the competition. I just can't get over what Molly Kennedy did. Be able to stun the Division I competition in not 1 but 2 events is absolutely ridiculous, as that's got to be a season PR. Speaking of Molly Kennedy, I caught up with that superstar this week. I think I can say Molly Kennedy was probably my highest profile interview of the week. No offense to everyone else out there, but you look at the success that Molly Kennedy just had, and that's something else. Very fitting thing to read about Molly Kennedy here after dethroning Division I competition is, I'm very happy with how I've been doing so far, but I know nothing can be guaranteed. Tim has talks with me probably around once a week that remind me of my goals and keep me motivated during practices. I have to remind myself that I can't just go through the motions and expect results. I have to push myself all the time. And you can tell Molly Kennedy pushes herself all the time, especially with the fact that she just dethroned those 2 Division I events. Molly Kennedy's goals: stay motivated, keep pushing, and always do my best. I never want to regret a practice. Every day is a chance to get better, so I never want to waste it. I asked her about competing against Division I competition, especially Yale and UConn being at the upper echelon of that. This is the type of meet where we look for personal victories. We know we're not going to win against Yale and UConn, but she just did. But we look at our smaller wins like personal bests and time drops instead. Having fast competition can lead to a fast race when you see your opponent getting ahead of you, so it helps to motivate us for better times. Talked to Molly Kennedy about how she feels about the team overall. She said, I feel like our team has been coming together well. We lost a lot of seniors who were a huge part of our team, but got a new group of freshmen. So it's been an adjustment for everyone since half the team is new. Tim talks about there being a point in the season where hard work overcomes talent. And because everyone's working hard, I'm excited to see how the team shows out at meets, especially at conference. As long as we keep our motivation, I think there could be lots of success coming our way. I'll read off more of that, but I want to get back into the live action. If you're looking for more about Molly Kennedy too, the Student Magazine just came out yesterday, or it might have been today. Student Magazine just came out in the last 2 days, and they did a story, a great one, about Aiden and Molly Kennedy as sibling swimmers, and I recommend that everybody go check that out. But finishing out that event, that is Slowick in lane 5, 31:43 here last split, 25:51 overall. Lippert in lane 2 of UConn, 2:07:22. Rogers finishes out in 4th for UConn, 2:10:82.
2:05:51 right there takes it. And Slowick taking Heat 1 right there out of 95. Swimming in Heat 2 of the white 200-yard backstroke.
We're going to get to Heat 2 here. 200-yard back. Devin Sargent is back out there. We are on event 17 out of 28, so 11 more to go, as we are way ahead of schedule, folks. This, for context, on the heat sheet, says this event was supposed to start at 5:52. We are now at 5:35. We are rocking and rolling out here. And it's all thanks to those super fast times out of these Division I opponents, and also Southern Connecticut getting pushed by them to succeed. So here we are in Heat 2. So you're going to want to watch Sargent. I believe that's her in lane 2. As I mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, Sargent, a big piece of this Yale swimmers on the watch list. She'll continue along there in lane 2, as it looks like she's starting to build out a bit of a lead. Your Southern competitors, Captain Zoe McNeil and Abby Lyons in lane 6. As we are going to continue to flip here. Devin Sargent, second in the Ivy lead in 200 back to time of 1:56.87. That was the event most similar to this one as we are swimming 200 back. So Sargent already owns that second best time at 1:56.87. We'll see if she can break that time here at the Hutch today. Out there in lane 2, 1 minute flat, 31:31, her last split. We've got lanes 4 and 5, Hoffman and Koff. One Yale, one UConn. Koff out of Yale, Hoffman out of UConn. As Sargent hits another flip turn, 31.62, 132.18. That's what she's got right now in the 200 back, as she's got a commanding lead over the rest of the competition. Your Southern Connecticut competitors, Lyons in lane 6, well behind that top part of the pack, and McNeil out there in lane 3 behind Lyons, so they might be ringing up the last 2 places in this race, unfortunately. But you look at Sargent out there in lane 2, just continuing to eat up the distance. She will finish this race out 2:02.94. 1:56.87 was her previous top time, so she does not set a best for herself this season. Everyone in there starting to finish it out. Koff in second, Hoffman in third, Griffin in fourth. You got Lyons in fifth and Zoe McNeil in sixth. So your Southern Connecticut competitors round out the back half of the 200 back on the women's side, but here we are to the men's 200 backstroke. Oh, never mind. Oh, yes, we are. In the men's version of this race, smaller one this time, Mason Durant and Vincent Roney are your Owls competitors to 2 Yales. Nick Zerva spoke very highly of Mason Durant, and he won an event at that CSI meet. So Durant really starting to turn things around for the Owls. Starting to put together a good start to the season, this kind of midpoint in the season, as conference championships are in February. We are now in December, beginning of December, so we got about 2 months up until conference championships, and this team, as I mentioned, they have their training trip coming up over winter break. After that training trip, they end up coming back for a back-to-back, the United States Marine Academy and Assumption University, both at home. Both will be streamed on our YouTube channel, so look out for those. You got those two coming back around. Tomorrow, this team heads up to New York to take on Pace, another Northeast 10 Conference foe who will be a big change of pace from Yale and UConn. As out there in lane 5, that is Lee. And in lane 2, that is another Yale swimmer. Lee and Hazlitt running the race. Lane 4, Vincent Roney out there for Southern Connecticut as he's next behind the pack. And bringing up the rear there is Durant in lane 6. They'll hit another flip, do these top swimmers here. It looks like Lee is the one with the lead. Because you can't spell lead without Lee. And that's exactly what he's showing out there. 28.79 out there in lane 5 was his split. Lee will continue along here. Come through the line. As he'll get set, hit the flip turn once again, will Lee. 28.64 was his last split. Talking a lot about both of these teams, a lot of information. We haven't really gotten to the background on the men's swimming and diving program here at Southern. Men's swim won their 4th straight NE10 championship last season, 17th all-time title dating back to 2003. Southern finished with 912 points. They won it on the last day because Adelphi was leading for most of it, as Lee will cross the line there, 151.20. Southern finished at 912. Adelphi was close behind at 878. 34 medals, including 7 individual championships for the men. 14th year since 2003 that Southern has swept NE10s. Owls medals in the 1650 free, 200-yard backstroke, 400-yard freestyle relay, 200-yard breaststroke, and 200-yard backstroke. All of those medals came from seniors. The only returner to medal was Ben Frazier's role in the 800-yard freestyle relay. The seniors that are gone, a lot of big names if you've been around the Owls program and have been following. Last year, Kobe Dominguez, the older brother of Lexi and Callie Dominguez, Franklin Kuhn, Drew Ladner, McAllister Milne, who is now coaching at Central Connecticut State University, Jonathan Tressel, one of my greatest friends on this team, and Henry Velasquez. That is 7 seniors. Their medal count at 23, 7 for Milne, 7 for Kuhn, 4 for Dominguez, 4 for Ladner, and 2 for Tressel. As we are on to the breaststroke, this is Heat 1. Rachel Bing and Claire Hanna, both newcomers to the squad. So the young guns getting tested out here against Division I competition here in the 200-yard breaststroke. In Heat 2, we will see Kitos again. Since we'll see Kitos again in Heat 2, I'm going to highlight more of that interview. Asked her about how the team is doing. I believe that our team's performance this year is great, especially at this time of the year, as November and December are definitely the hardest 2 months of our season due to NE10s feeling so close but yet so far. Our team has done well with getting our work done in practice, but when it comes to what we need to work on, it's just the little things, like our walls, underwaters, and our breathing patterns. Working on small things doesn't show right away, but it will by the end of the conference meet in February. So we're now 3 months into the season, and all of us now are in the best shape we have been all season. The work we're putting into practice every day is finally started to show. Kitos talks about her individual start to the season by saying, my start of the season, I would say, is the best I've started my entire college career. The times I'm putting down now are times I didn't even reach midseason last year. I'm doing very well with momentum, mindset, and fueling my body with the right foods needed for energy, which is why I think this year is going so well for me. I still need to work on the little things like reaching and extending my stroke, but each day in practice is always on my mind, and I always am working on it. Let's get back to the live action. Lane 5, that is Lee in the lead. She hits the flip turn as we're going to go back to Kitos' interview. I'm most excited to see how our women's team competes at NE10s, especially the freshman class. There are so many of them. With all of them showing great progress and times, I'm so excited to see how 1 year of collegiate training will better their times in February. The main goal for the rest of the season is just to remain motivated with the holiday season coming up. It is important to remain locked in with our swimming goals. We can't take any breaks and need to continue putting in the work even when we are at home. Asked her about being a captain. Kitos said being a captain has definitely been a huge learning curve for me. It was hard at first trying to find the right balance between being a friend and being a captain. Even though I'm still learning how to balance it, I'm happy that the team trusts me and knows that behind every action I take, there's always a good intention behind it. That might be the best answer I got from her all day, is we're going to recap that first heat. Lee getting home the 1 spot. Claire Hanna of Southern Connecticut in 3rd. So Southern will gain some points off of that one as Kitos gets set to enter the pool out there in lane 3. She's talking about swimming these tough matchups. I think it's great to be competing against bigger teams like UConn and Yale. Some people may find it discouraging swimming against big names in the sport, but I find it motivating. I know that my athletic capability, I know what my athletic capability is, but swimming with other athletes that are much faster encourages me to try to keep up with them just a little bit, even if it's for a small bit of time. I know I won't beat their time in the end, but maybe I can have a better start or a faster turn, which in the end helps my personal time, and that's all that matters. Our team can gain so much out of swimming against Yale and UConn swimmers. These D1 swimmers are the best of the best, and we can see how focusing on the little things, our underwaters, our walls, can really change how a race goes. They definitely put in the work to be in the position they are in, which shows that hard work can take you so far. Thank you to Ali Kitos for getting back to me. Kitos actually, just to put a personal note in on that, Kitos got back to me today, and one thing that she said was, sorry for getting back to you late on that, but her comments were so great, she could have sent them to me 5 minutes before the meet started, and I would have been happy. Back to the live action, it's lanes 4 and 5. That is Lessinger of UConn and Scottis of Yale. St. Hilaire, Kitos, your Owls competitors out here, and they are continuing to move along in this 200-yard breaststroke. This is event 19. We are down to single digits for remaining events out here, folks. As highlights of the day for Southern definitely include Molly Kennedy defeating Division I competition in both the 50 and 100, but also Molly Kennedy, not just Molly Kennedy, but a lot of these Owls competitors bringing up 3 and 4. 3 and 4 gain points for you. If you can get numbers 3 and 4, you gain points on the chart, and that's a big thing against Yale and UConn. They'll get any points they can take, will Southern Connecticut out here. As when I interviewed Coach Quill and talked to him about competing against Yale and UConn, he said, we will be fighting for third. Continuing along here, lanes 4 and 5. They are even-paced. This race looks like it come down to the final lean, and that's what a lot of races have come down to today with UConn and Yale. They'll continue to move along here. Lanes 4 and 5, Lessinger and Scottis continue here in lanes 4 and 5, Yale and UConn, as you see them starting to speed up now. The line first there in lane 5. That was Scottis, but that's only for second, as in first place out there in lane 2. In the 200-yard breast, that was Lee. Or never mind, that was Lillian Teal. Oh, no, that was Lee. That was Jessie Lee, who we mentioned on those players on the watch list, as I'm getting a little disoriented with the fact that that was heat 2. As here's the breast. Concliffe, Fournier, and Simmons. As I've been calling him Concliffe all season, and it's Conliffe. I want to apologize publicly there to Corbin Conliffe. And the family of Corbin Conliffe, because getting that last name wrong is big. That's on me. Jumping into the water there for the breast, that is Conliffe, Fournier, and Simmons out of Southern Connecticut. You look at how much distance Fournier covers underneath the water. That's ridiculous. Continuing along here, though, out there in lane 5, that is Saber in the lead. Along with him in lane 3, that is Lee as well. Not Jessie Lee on the women's side. This is Jywin Lee. Lee and Saber, 3 and 5, are your leaders. It looks like Lee's got a bit of a lead. As I'll say it again, you can't spell lead without Lee. Granted, he spells it L-I, but still, without the sound, you can't get lead. Lee continues to move along here in the breast, and he will hit the flip turn again. We'll get you a split 31-20, 32-34 for Saber. They'll continue along here. Lee hits the turn again. We'll see what he can do when he reaches that final line. As his lead is expanded there on Saber, but out there in lane 6 on his own, that is Simmons. Simmons just behind lane 4, that is Fournier. And Conliffe bringing up the rear of the SCSU competitors, but it looks like Fournier might be on his way to third. It's great for him. 31-62, that is the split there for Lee. 33.81 for Sabre, and we're going to look at Fournier as he continues to bring his way into the line, as he will hit the line there, 37.79 for Fournier, 146.92 his split overall there. As talked about breaking 210, I believe it was, in the 200 breast. I don't know if he'll get to that today. But still, swimming is good for Fournier as he redshirted last year, so every opportunity in the water is a good one for him. As Lee will bring up the first place spot, 204.24. Look at Fournier. He's hustling. Second place, that is Sabre of Yale. Fournier wants that third spot. He's fighting for it as he's going to continue to kick down the line. And there comes Nicholas Fournier. 37.43, 224.35 his time. And kicking down there for fourth, that is Simmons out there in lane 6. So bottom point scorers end up with the Owls again. That is Fournier and Simmons. Great job, though, from both of them as Fournier hangs out in the water for a second. We are onto the 500 free. Southern Connecticut competitors, Julia Pitchell, Ava Emmerich. UConn's got multiple competitors in this event. I believe Yale just has the one. Just Putnam. Just Lauren Putnam out there for Yale, so that's an interesting look. Sending only one swimmer, but 500 free, we saw Molly Kennedy swim that against CSI. She, I believe, finished second in the 500 free. I don't have that page of my notes in front of me right now, but the pages I do have are the interview that I did with Molly Kennedy. And with the 500 free being such a long event, I'm going to take that time to read this off to you. I mentioned that first response earlier, so I'm not going to get to it right at the beginning, but Kennedy was talking about hard work, overcoming talent, and the team starting to put it together. She talked about competing against top Division I teams. She said, we start off our season racing a lot of teams that are much stronger than us, like Central Connecticut, Wagner, and Westchester. It gives us good, hard races and pushes us to do our best, hence UConn and Yale happening. And then as the season progresses, we swim more teams that are in our conference, and it becomes a much more level playing field. Kennedy is very happy with the way her season started so far, and how could she not be? But I know nothing can be guaranteed. Tim always talks to me probably about once a week, reminds me of my goals, keeps me motivated during practices. I have to remind myself that I can't just go through the motions and expect results. I have to push myself all the time. Kennedy's excited for that Florida trip, as that's going to be the next big thing coming up on the calendar, except for the meet tomorrow at Pace University. Because I like training. Kennedy loves training outside. That's something she told me. And they'll sometimes train long course meters, not just short course yards. Florida brings us some of the hardest workouts of the year, but I also find that it brings fast results afterwards at our January meets. Goal for Kennedy is to stay motivated, keep pushing, always do her best. I never want to regret a practice. Every day is a chance to get better, so I never want to waste it. Talked about Yale and UConn as a type of meet to get personal victories, and I just found it very funny that she mentioned in this response that they're not going to win the events, and they want to take the smaller wins when she just beat Division I teams. She said the team still has some shortcomings to work on, like they might have a better underwater, stronger kicks, faster flip turns. Gives everybody a chance to see where they might want to work in practice and improve so they can get better at conference. She was talking about competing in this meet. Kennedy, one of those sibling duos on the squad, her brother Aiden on the men's team. And the other thing about Kennedy is that her mother swam. Kennedy's mom swam breaststroke up until college. She talked about when they were growing up, she wanted to try a new sport, and she wanted to be like her mother, so that's why she got in the pool. She swam the same club team that she did, just different coaches. So if it weren't for Aiden and Molly Kennedy's mom, we wouldn't get two incredible athletes out here. So shout out to the Kennedy family for getting their children into swimming and getting them to Southern Connecticut, because that means I get to watch Molly Kennedy do cool things like taking down Yale and UConn, as that was incredible. But we are back to the live action. This is the 500-yard freestyle. Your leader out here, it looks like it's lane 4. That is Hastis of UConn, a freshman. As Callie Dominguez is getting ready to swim in the second heat. So in Heat 2 of this 500-yard free. I may choose to read off some more Callie Dominguez information than I have read off to you already. But lane 4 out there, Hastis still with the lead. Hastis still continues along here in lane 4. Looks like she's got the lead out there. Your other competitors here in lane 3, chugging along there in that Owls swim cap. That is Julia Pitchell, her sister Jillian Pitchell. So a lot of sibling duos on the squad, and like I mentioned earlier on, if you want to look at that a little bit more in depth, and particularly the angle the Kennedys bring to it, check out the SCSU student magazine. It's called The Crescent Magazine. My good friend J. Mai Vasquez is the editor-in-chief. He wrote that article with another good friend of mine, Julian LaForest. So if you want to check that out, that is a great article. There's also a video component to accompany it. I got the pleasure of sitting in on that interview with Aiden and Molly Kennedy, and they're both very good in front of a camera. In particular, Molly really thrived in front of that camera as well. You can really tell, too, that those two, they do a good job at motivating each other. They're always in competition, let it be playful or not, but they're always pushing each other to do better. And they help each other out, too. It's a great sibling relationship. The bell rings there. That is Hastis in lane 4 in Heat 1 of event 21. As the clock continues to tick down, Hastis chugging along toward that line. She'll hit the line and get ready to flip for the turn to the last length. We'll see if she finds a new gear on this last length and leaves it all out there. Hastis hits the line there. 5:06, 29, 27-21 is her final split. Lane 5, your next finisher, Mia Slowick of Yale. Your Owls competitors, Lexi Dominguez. Oh, never mind, I'm reading off the wrong event. Hastis, lane 4, lane 5, that was Putnam of Yale. Your Owls competitors, Julia Pitchell, out there in lane 3. Ava Emmerich out there in lane 6. Pitchell will finish it out there in lane 3 as we're going to get set for Heat 2. Shout out to Emmerich as a rookie, finishing before Pitchell. Ducharme, Callie Dominguez are your next two competitors for Southern Connecticut. Here we are, Heat 2 of the women's 500 free. As I mentioned, this is event 21 out of 28. Our final two events of the freestyle relays. Get your individual medleys in, 25 and 26. Go back to the butterfly. Men's and women's 100-yard butterfly will be 23 and 24. We are concluding 21 here in Heat 2 of the women's 500-yard, and then the men will be up next. And the distance animal is back out there. Dylan Pressure, but he'll be competing against arguably one of the best athletes in the entirety of Division I, regardless of sport. That is Nicholas Finch, the 19-year-old out of London. But we're going to get back into the live action here. Hitting the flip turn there, as it looks like out there is your leader in Yale in lane 2. That is Morgan Cady in the lead. Katie ahead of the rest of the competition, but if you look at the trailing pack, you've got lane 6 there, Callie Dominguez keeping pace with your Yukon competitor in lane 7. So we talked about earlier on, a lot of the common sentiment from the Southern Connecticut squad is that this having teams like Yukon, Yale, SCSU, Wagner, come in, it really benefits this team because they try to keep pace with them. And right there, you see Dominguez trying to keep pace there with her counterpart in lane 7. That is Callie Dominguez and Julia Fondersmith. Dominguez falling a little bit behind Fondersmith, but keeping pace with lane 4, as that is Courtney Phillips. But ahead of the pack here, lane 2. That is Katie. Katie, we've seen her swim in multiple events today, win multiple events today, as she's going to continue to move along. Katie continuing in this 500 free as we're going to get ready on the men's side as well, as I mentioned. Got to dig up some info for that. Continuing along here, Katie still in the lead. All her teammates cheering her on. That's one of the things I love about swim, is I think swim in particular is one of the best sports for engaging the audience, and the audience being your team. I think swim does a great job at having every single teammate involved. It is the ultimate team sport, despite the fact that you are competing alone. You are really cheering on the rest of your squad. As we continue along in the 500. Lane 7 jumping out to a bit of a lead in second, but in first still, it is that swimmer in lane 2. That is Katie, Morgan L. Katie. She will continue along here, hit another flip turn in the 500. It's one of your longer events out there, but still very largely ahead of schedule is this meet. So shout out to all the swimmers, all the coaches, all the referees, the PA that keep this event moving. Swim meets can end up being long nights for a lot of us. As she'll keep going down there in lane 2. Katie continuing to lead. Ducharme in lane 3 on length 15. Length 17, though, for Katie in the lead. Kicking along there is Katie. She will continue in the 500. As preparing, setting up there, locking in is Dylan Pressure. Pressure's a big piece. He came back after redshirting last year. As having him back in the 500 is going to be so helpful for this squad. As they'll continue to push here, does Katie in lane 2. Katie hits the line. 5:05:11 is her split as the board. Some serious malfunctions here on the board. Your Yale and UConn swimmers finishing it up out there in lane 6, though. There's Callie Dominguez. Gets her spot in the top 4. Ducharme finishes up, rounds it out. So we're going to get set for the men's version here. So we're going to get a clash of the Titans in the men's version. Nicholas Finch in lane 7. Dylan Pressure in lane 4.
Next event is event 22, men's 500-yard freestyle. Swimming for Yale in lane 3, Daniel Nedgoff.
I'd call this a race of fan favorites, especially for Southern Connecticut. Richie Hall, Samir Sweetie, Dylan Pressure, James Custer. Custer, one of those Zerva shout-outs of the week. He said Custer's been performing a lot better in practice so far this week and is turning around his season. So let's see how these Southern guys do. Event 22 out of 28. As we might be record time for a swim meet. This meet started at 4, it's only 6:06. Record time, that's what happens when the divers go compete somewhere else, but I love the divers, it's just they take a while to compete. With Pressure and Finch in this race, let's read off some stats here. I want to start with the competitor Nicholas Finch, the sophomore out of London, England. He's the number 1 fastest time in the Ivy League, 18:96 in that 50 free, which he just scored at the Ohio State Invitational. That qualifies him for NCAA Division I championships. 50 free time is 15th in the entirety of Division I. Also has a top time in the 100 free at 42:24, which is good for first in the Ivy League, and qualifies him for the NCAA Division I championship. That is 30 in Division I. The 50 fly, top time in the Ivy League at 20:64. He is 8th in Division I. The 100 fly in the Ivy League, 44:62 for the top time, 6th in Division I. So as I was doing this research, I'd like to take you folks through my thought process. I started by seeing the freestyle times, all provided by SwimCloud. If anyone wants to look at some good information, check out SwimCloud. They do a great job keeping track of all the times. But I'm surfing SwimCloud. I go through the freestyle events, and I see that this Nicholas Finch kid is out of this world. And then I go to fly, and I go, he's a better fly swimmer than a freestyler. I thought this kid was like one of the best freestylers in Division I. It turns out he's one of the best fly swimmers and freestyle swimmers in Division I. Talk about a freak of nature. He's the British world record holder in the 100-meter butterfly, the Commonwealth Games record holder in the 50-meter butterfly, the World Junior record holder in the 4x50 mixed freestyle relay. He represented England at the Commonwealth Youth Games, and he represented Great Britain at the European Juniors. And on top of all that, he volunteered in Trinidad and Tobago. Could you ask for a better swimmer? I don't think so, and he's right here at the Hutchinson Natatorium in New Haven, Connecticut. As if you're going to want to watch some of the top talent, the cream of the crop, look out there at lane 7. As it looks like I talked all about him lining up in lane 7, and I told all you folks to look out there at lane 7, but it looks like he's not even swimming. He must have been a late scratch from the heat sheet, or maybe he moved over. But I don't see Finch out there. But anyways, a lot of good accomplishments for Nicholas Finch. But another decorated athlete, but at a lower level, is Dylan Pressure, the 22-year-old senior after redshirting last year. This is where he makes his money, folks, is these distance freestyle events. Pressure did an interview with him a couple weeks ago. We're going to read that off again. Redshirted last year, he said he thinks the best part is being able to compete. He truly never left the water last season, was practicing with the team, but nothing compares to being able to compete. Pressure likes these kind of events. He likes swimming the top dogs. He doesn't like always dominating in the Northeast 10. He likes competing against the big squads like the Yales, the UConns, the Wagners. And he said Wagner in particular was a meet he really enjoyed because he got to race tough opponents. He said he thinks the team is performing exceptionally well. Got some people who are experiencing some injuries. But all in all, they have every member of the team they started with, which is unheard of in his time. Along with that, he said there's a big adjustment coming off a season of not competing in front of people at all. He said he's been training and competing well and looking to continue that over the next little under 3 months. Truly excited for what the next couple months can hold. It goes quick, but these next 2 months are where the improvement happens. Everyone is in shape now, and they're pushing one another in the pool. This is my favorite quote that Pressure gave me. He said, "This is when the new gears are found that create a championship team. One of my biggest goals for this season has been to turn my underwaters off the walls into a strength of mine. It has never been a strong part of my stroke, so I am looking to continue to improve them and make them as strong as they can be for conference." He talked about being a captain, as there comes the bell, and that is lane 3. Out here in lane 3, that is Daniil Nenkov. As the bell rings for Nenkov in lane 3, but we're going to continue to talk about Pressure. He said being a captain has been a big learning curve for him and the three of them. I'm lucky enough to have captains who I communicate really well with on both the men's and women's side, but especially the men's. The three of us see things similarly and have the same goal in mind to win the conference championship. Doing it with Nick and Samir has been a great opportunity, and I think we all complement each other's strengths and weaknesses very well. Finishing out that race in first, that is Nenkov. Pressure to follow him. In lane 5 there, that is Finn Henry. As you look at Pressure and Henry right there, they're both having that chat. I can imagine what's being said there is, great race, guys. Thanks for pushing me as hard as you did. It's one of the things I love about Dylan Pressure in particular over the time that I've been friends with him is he's very good at being a glue guy. Pressure is very good at bringing people together that you wouldn't necessarily think would come together. And I think that's a big skill that complements his captaining ability, is his ability to be a really nice, jovial guy in all sorts of circumstances. As we go from a sprint freestyle to from a distance freestyle to a bit more of a sprint butterfly event. As the 100-yard butterfly, this is the women's 100-yard butterfly, our second to last double heat women's event, our third to last women's event of the day. One of the reasons I like watching swim, I'm sure it's part of the reason that you folks like watching swim at home too, is that it's just a feat of incredible athleticism. You just think about how many hours these players put in every day. They practice twice a day. They're out here at 6 a.m. swimming in the pool, getting that lift in, and then they're back out here again. If you look at the coaches in particular too, the coaches are here for that practice at 6 a.m. and then they're also here from about 1 to 5 every day conducting practices as they roll in the swimmers in 2 separate groups. So huge shout out to Coach Quill and Coach Moran for giving a lot of their time and their help with me this season. I've really appreciated them helping me get acclimated to the swim world, which is something that I don't really know the swim world that well. I'm starting to learn it this season, and thanks to Tim Quill and CJ Moran, I'm picking up more and more every day. Lane 5 is your leader here in this first heat. Lisa Marie Finger. Lane 4, close along with her, that is Rian Russell. Russell and Marie Finger are your first two. Lane 7 as well in your third place. As that concludes Heat 1, rounding it out there in Lane 8, that is Emily Denise, the freshman who actually was a dancer before she joined swim. She danced, I believe, up until the high school level. Interesting dual sport athlete. I wonder how that dancing, endurance, flexibility, things like that contribute to her success out here in the pool at the Hutch. As here is Heat 2, Paula Castillo and Erilyn Vogel, your competitors, both of them winning individual events at their last meet at CSI. Heat 2 of the butterfly 100-yard, excuse me. I keep thinking like track and meters. We'll see who gets the lead off of that first turn. Emerging from it first, it looks like is, I'm going to say lanes 4, 5, and 7 really have the lead along with lane 2. That's all the D1 swimmers. Penny Zakrinsky? I'm not going to try that one again. Ella Epps, Elle Dunnigan, and Maggie Rhodes. Castillo and Vogel behind them. It's going to be a close race between those Division I top dogs in Yale and UConn. This is so fitting to call them top dogs with their dog mascots. Lane 5 there, coming into the line. It's It's going to be lane 5, I believe, that takes that race. That was L. Dunnigan of Yale, 22-year-old senior. As we're going to get set for the men's 100-yard butterfly with arguably the best name I've seen in college swimming, Hammer Massey. Your Owls competitors, Daniel Lazar, Aiden Kennedy, Zach Krantz, and Nicholas Zerva. One thing about Nick Zerva that maybe you don't know about him is that he's an Ironman. Guy competed in the Ironman along with his former captain, Connor Skarzinski, back about a year or two ago now. Zerva, you know what you have to do in an Ironman is a 2.4-mile swim, 120-plus mile bike ride to a 26.2-mile run. I was talking to Nick Zerva a couple weeks ago before the meet. One of the things he said to me is, I asked him about that Ironman because I'm always curious about it. And he said to me, I guess the Ironman helps me in swim because nothing will be as hard as that. You can do a hard set at practice. You can swim a hard race against top competition, but nothing will be as hard as going for 16 hours straight is basically the gist of what Zerva said about that Ironman. And he's an incredible athlete. That incredible athlete will be in lane 8. But this pool is full of incredible athletes, in particular some of the tops in Division I. And this is the fly where I'm surprised we are not seeing our guy from the free, who is also tops in the fly. We're not seeing Nicholas Finch out here. As Finch in the top 10 in Division I in both of the fly categories that he's swam. I'm surprised we don't see him out here in the fly, in the 100-yard fly, but it doesn't matter because Yale is pulling away a commanding lead. That is lane 3. Jack Wang. Jack Wang finishes it out, 48.06. If you see how aggressive his fly stroke is, how much splash he generates on the fly. As Wang was the first one to cross the line there, he'll take home first for the Bulldogs. As we are going to get set for the 200 IM on the women's side, followed by the 2 IM on the men's side. As it looks like we're going to get another break here in the action. Some of these swimmers taking a chance to re-warm up, and I'm going to take a chance to rest my vocals as we'll be back just after the break. Welcome back after the short intermission as Southern Connecticut dominating this event in terms of participation in Heat 1. Alison Quitos, Claire Hanna, Jade Ventura, 3 Owls competitors, just one Yale, Angela Wang. As we'll see if that one Yale competitor can round out first place as she continues to move along here. Does Angela Wang through the first little bit of this race. This is the individual medley. It's what tests the swimmer's versatility. As they're now onto the backstroke length. Wow, that was a tongue twister, folks, is hitting the line there. And going the other way back is Yale's Angela Wang. Alison Quitos looks like she's trying to get second here. So you got Quitos and then Claire Hanna just behind her with Jade Ventura out there in lane 8. So swim along here. They switch strokes this time. This time I believe it's going to be the breast. Yep. Quitos, an individual breaststroker herself, so it's probably one of her stronger events in the fly. Stronger events in the individual medley for Quitos as she continues to move along here. Continuing to move through the event now. Lane 5 still in the lead. That is Wang on the breaststroke, but she's going to switch to the free. And freestyle in general is just a faster stroke than breaststroke. So if you can switch from free to fly quicker, your lead's just going to grow. So here's Quitos switching that freestyle length. Lane 6 catching up on her a little bit, though. That is Claire Hanna. Is coming through on the freestyle length there. That is Wang in lane 5. She will continue to move through and hit the line there to cap it off at 2:10.72 as Wang bests the Owls there. As we will see which Owl comes in first. It is a battle between Quitos and Hanna. Quitos just in front. Ventura finishing up here. Quitos 2, Hanna 3, Ventura 4 are your top 4 and only 4 finishers here, because they are the only 4 participants in Heat 1. Getting set for Heat 2, player on the watch list for Heat 2 is definitely Sydney Perkins. She has been doing very well today, along with Mabel Koff. So look at Sydney Perkins out of UConn's in lane 4, Mabel Koff in lane 5. Alexis Martino back out there, sharing a nickname with me out there in lane 7. Lucy Walker of Yale in lane 2. Abby Lyons of Southern Connecticut in lane 3, along with Ellen Baker in lane 6. Heat 2, a more fill pool, lanes 2 to 7. Excluding 1 and 8. It's filled the middle, but limit the end caps there as this is going to be the last individual event for the women today. Emphasis on the individual. We have the relays coming up in just a little bit. They'll continue along here in the fly, taking the lead now. It looks like it's a race between lanes 2 and 7. Walker and Martino have the lead in the fly, but when you do the individual medley, there's definitely one stroke that you're a little bit better at than the rest, and that stroke could be a big one to gain the lead. So these girls that are out there in the lead, Martino and Walker, after the first stroke and now into the backstroke, one of these other girls could be better at a different stroke, and that could propel them up the rankings a little bit. As into the backstroke now. And now switching from backstroke, there is Martino and Walker. They travel a long way underneath the water to set up the breaststroke here. As it looks like with a slight lead there, it is Walker in lane 2. 4 and 5 just behind the pack, though. So they're going to switch over. I want to see if any of those girls in lanes 4 and 5, when they switch over to freestyle, end up fighting their way back a lot. As the real lead here, though, is Lucy Walker, Alexis Martino dropping back to that fight for second with lanes 4 and 5. They'll switch to the freestyle, and here's Walker kicking away, trying to fend off the opponents as 3 of those top Division I swimmers on her tail. Walker switches sides, ends up kicking a little more here for the line, as catching up quickly though. Martino, and then lanes 4 and 5 there. That is Perkins and Koff. But it looks like Walker's going to fend him off. Finish it in first. Second, though, catching all the way up into second will be Koff. Third there is Martino, and fourth being Sydney Perkins, with the Southern Connecticut swimmers rounding it out in lane 6. That is Baker besting Lyons. 200-yard individual medley for the men. Nick Zerva, Sam Whitaker, Zach Krantz, your competitors for the men. 2 Yale competitors, that is Minashayan and Mountain Takas. I read off that interview from Nick Zerva, but something I want to read off before he gets set to compete in his final event of the day is his appreciation for both of these schools coming out. He said, "I'd like to add that we appreciate teams like Yale and UConn coming to Southern to race us so much. They don't have to do this, but they do it because of their respect for us and the program." Big shout out to Yale and UConn for coming out here to, let's just face it, is a smaller pool, a Division II team that is seen by less people, gets less funding. But Yale and UConn, they don't care. They come out here and compete against us. And I'm really happy about that. So thank you to Yale and UConn for getting this. Thank you to Yale and UConn as well as Southern for working to get this event on the schedule. But thank you to Yale and UConn for agreeing to come to this event. It's been a lot of fun for me in particular to watch these Yale athletes. As I mentioned earlier on, I'm fairly new to the swimming world. But being able to watch these top dogs of Yale shows me kind of what the best of the best in this sport can really be. As continuing along here, we have the backstroke. Yale swimmers in the lead. Minashayan in second. Mountain Tonakis in first out there in lane 5. Your swimmers bringing up the rear are all the Owls here. Zerva out there in lane 6. That is lane 4, Whitaker. Lane 2, Zach Krantz. Up into the breaststroke now. It looks like your leader for the Owls gang is Sam Whitaker, the freshman, showing that he is unafraid of this competition. Whitaker to the line. He's going to switch now. And what is he going to switch? He's going to switch into the breaststroke for another length. Is closing the gap, though. These Yale swimmers in a competition against themselves. It is Minashayan and Mountain Tonakis. Mountain Tonakis now into the freestyle. Out there in lane 5, and he's starting to expand this lead. Is something you notice about both these swimmers is just how tall they are. You get that out of a lot of distance swimmers. You get really tall guys. Like, look at Dylan Pressure. He's a pretty tall individual. Mountain Tonakis continues along here in lane 5, and it looks like he's going to end up bringing home the win for the Bulldogs. And in second, it's going to be his counterpart there as Yale gets places 1 and 2. But rounding out third, though, kicking away, that is Whitaker, the freshman, proving to have another strong start to the season right there as he won an individual event at CSI and now taking the first Owls spot in this last individual event of the day. As now we're going to get to our relays, our final 2 events. As you find that swimming starts and ends with relays, it's a nice bookend, a nice exciting bookend. As the women's relay features a full pool. Southern Connecticut lanes 1, 3, 6. An interesting look for Southern Connecticut. Their number 1 swimmer in the relay leading off is Molly Kennedy. If I were the coaches of Southern Connecticut with my limited swimming knowledge, I would put Molly Kennedy at the anchor. I would think I'd want somebody who can reel in the competition all the way at the back, but they're going to lead off with Molly Kennedy in lane 3. That lane 3 team is really interesting. Molly Kennedy, Rena Loacano, Jillian Pitchell, and Erilyn Vogel. Along with them, your lane 1 team, Sierra Ducharme, Ava Emmerich, Jade Ventura, Callie Dominguez. Your lane 16, Emily Denise Ainsley Dahl, Rachel Bing, Lakshmi Garofalo. So that's your team young gun if you really want to label them out there. Lane 3 is probably your A team. Lane 6 is probably your team young gun. And lane 1 is probably your mix, your young and old mix. As here we are in the 400, yard freestyle relay, as they're all kicking for the front. Lane 1, lane mixed for Southern Connecticut, mixed team there between youth and experience, is the one that's really at the back. But getting the lead now is your Yale swimmer, Molly Kennedy, is not going to beat all the Division I competition in this event, but that was a really impressive meet from Molly Kennedy. I believe she finished that first leg in second, maybe third. But they traded off. Lane 3 for Southern Connecticut, this is Rena Loacano. But still in the lead, that is lane 5. That is the Yale team, Sarah Plunkett, with Ebley handing it off to her. After Plunkett, they will get Caroline McCurdy and then Jessie Lee to round it out. So those two are really a solid anchor team in swimmers 3 and 4. Yale out there in lane 8 as well, proven pretty functional. That's more of their, I would say, developmental team with where they're performing in that race. But out there in lane 4, UConn putting up a fight here. Jessica Shang, who we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Mia Hastis, Kirsten O'Connor, and Maggie Rhodes, as here comes O'Connor. That lane 5 team is still in the lead. Southern Connecticut's lane 3 after Molly Kennedy has taken a bit of a decline, but they switch it off from Loacano to Pitchell. Jillian Pitchell, a freshman, trying to kick away here and continue to prove strong against this Division I competition. But that lane 3 team, you can just show that it shows how much Molly Kennedy is really the superstar of the women's team. As you see Dylan Pressure getting ready to swim in the men's relay. He'll be accompanied by Aiden Kennedy, Samir Sweetie, and Richie Hall, as that's probably Southern Connecticut's A team. However, you could argue that lane 4 in the men's race would be a good team for them too. Jack Fry, Daniel Lazar, Ben Frazier, Travis Scott. So I would say Southern Connecticut really doesn't have an A team there. They've got a 1A and a 1. They got a 1A and a 1B. Lane 5 continuing to eat up the distance. I believe Jessie Lee has now jumped into the water, as we mentioned her on the players on the watch list at the top of the broadcast. Continuing along, though, in lane 5, that is Lee. Lane 6, Southern Connecticut still moving along. Rachel Bing, Lakshmi Garofalo, as they're going to switch it up. And hitting that flip turn now in lane 5, that is Lee. As I said, mentioned her at the top of the broadcast, Jessie Lee, first in the Ivy League in the 50 breast at 28:39, 64th in Division I. 100 breast, first in the Ivy League. 1 minute 14 NCAA qualifying time, 46th in Division I. 200 breast, second in the Ivy League, 2:13.62. None of those strokes the freestyle, though. Showing her versatility out there is Jessie Lee, the 21-year-old out of Yale. She will hit the line and win the relay in defining fashion. Yale also coming in second. That's big for their point scoring on the day. UConn in third. And rounding out the 4 spot is UConn as well. Southern Connecticut swimming along there in lanes 3 and 8, as well as lane 6. 8 was the first one to finish. Never mind, that is Yale in lane 8. Violet Dorsey Reyes, the first Southern Connecticut lane to finish, was lane 3. That is Erilyn Vogel, who brought up the rear. Final event of the day. We made it, folks, and we made it with a lot more time than we expected. It is 6:40 at the start of this event. For reference on the heat sheet, this event was supposed to start near 7:15. We are flying through the schedule. Freestyle relay, Yale in lanes 1, 3, 5, and 7. Southern in the even-numbered lanes 2, 4, 6, and 8. As we'll say, we appreciate the Owls here on the broadcast, as they're going to get set. Jump into the water, first swimmer for each team. Your Southern Connecticut leadoff swimmers are Aiden Kennedy, Jack Fry, and Mason Durant. So you get a freshman in the leadoff hole, but in relay team 6, it's not a lot of experience. Freshmen Durant and Conliffe, sophomores Roney and Custer. But taking the lead there, it looks like it's lane 5, but Yale is doing a great job competing against each other. Lane 5, that is Nicholas Finch. We talked about him all broadcast, the Good Samaritan volunteering in Trinidad and Tobago. That should just end up being his nickname for the rest of the season, is the Good Samaritan. However, he is a very good swimmer to complement his charitable acts. He'll pass it off, though. That team in lane 5, Finch, Elliott Lee, Aiden Connors, and Hammer Massey. What a team for Yale. Finch a sophomore, Lee a sophomore, Connors a freshman, Massey a senior. Not their oldest team out there, but it might be their best. As leading now, it is lane 5 after that great first length from Nicholas Finch, who, I've said it throughout the broadcast, I'll say it again, might be one of the best athletes in the entirety of Division I, regardless of sport. Lee continuing to move along. As I'll say it again, you can't spell lead without Lee. As he'll continue to move along through here, and they'll trade it off there in lane 5. Lee flipping it off there to Aiden Connors. Connors hits the flip. He continues to swim along out there in lane 5. We'll check in on our Southern teams. Corbin Conliff, kind of the back of the pack there in lane 6 as he hands that one off to Vincent Roney. As Southern Connecticut in lane 2, looks like we might have Samir Sweetie up now. Yeah, that looks like Richie Hall is preparing for his final leg, as we missed a lot of Dylan Pressure's leg. But speaking of Dylan Pressure's name coming about, I want to say it one more time. Thank you to everyone who got back to me with my questions this week. Molly Kennedy, Callie Dominguez, Allison Kitos, Nick Zerva, as well as last week, Nick Zerva for a second time. Dylan Pressure, Nick Fournier, and the coaches, Tim and CJ. Huge shout out to everyone talking to me, getting me the info that I needed, and I'm really appreciative of everything that this swim team has done to help me out throughout this season. As I'm trying to get them some more media attention as well, as they're one of the best teams at this school, followed by track and field, and they deserve it. Here we are, 5 and 6, top of the race here. Or 6 just behind 5. They might even be a length behind, knowing Southern Connecticut against Yale here. Lane 5 you expected. This is Hammer Massey, the anchor leg of the Yale relay, as he brings the hammer down. Gets first for the Bulldogs, and finishing in second is another Yale team out there in lane 7, and they'll get it as well in lane 3. Look at Massey excited out there in lane 5. As that must have been a very big time for him, but getting the 4th spot is Southern Connecticut out there in lane 4. That was Travis Scott bringing up the rear of a relay by Fry, Lazar, Frazier, and Scott. As final event of the day, we're going to get our final swimmer crossing the line in just a few moments. That is James Custer, who Nick Zerva shouted out earlier on in the meet. As that is the 400 relay, that concludes today's meet against UConn and Yale. I would like to thank both of those Division I powerhouses for coming down to the Hutchinson Natatorium and competing here against Southern Connecticut. And I would like to thank all of you for watching the SCSU Owls YouTube channel for our live stream of today's event. As this will close it out for the SCSU Owls YouTube channel with swimming and diving versus UConn and Yale. This has been Ben Martin. Thank you for tuning in.